Well, hello. Welcome to the devotion for Friday, May the 22nd. This chapter may seem like a chapter that you have a hard time finding anything to relate with. But I really wonder, I think maybe by the time we do this devotion, you may think, wow, I can relate to this chapter. You know, David was a man, there he was, a shepherd boy. And he shows up and he kills Goliath. And he's anointed king, even though Saul was still king. Samuel anoints him. People know he's going to be the king. He wins all these battles. People are singing, Saul has killed his thousands, David his tens of thousands. He's a national hero. But by the time we get to the end of chapter 21, David is so hard on the run from Saul, who's trying to kill him, that he goes over to the Philistines, their mortal enemies, and acts like a crazy man to find sanctuary, slobber running down his beard. That's not the picture David had in mind when all these other things were happening. Saul continues to pursue, and the Bible teaches us here in chapter 22, it says that he departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. So when his brothers and all of his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. I'm sort of thinking, you know, people don't want to live in a cave. I think maybe they were afraid for their lives as well because they were David's relatives and Saul was so hard after him. So here is David. Not only is he not on the throne, he's in a cave, hiding for his life. And then look what verse 2 says. Now David is crying out to God for help. God, deliver me. Verse 2. And everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontented gathered to him, so that he became captain over them, and they were about 400 men with him. Now, can you imagine? Again, go back. We know what David was promised. Now he's hiding out for his life. He's asking God for help. And who shows up? 400 men who were discontented, in debt, and in distress. David has to be saying, what in the world is going on? We need to understand something. They didn't just suddenly show up with David and get happy. They were still probably very discontented men. I'm sure they complained about the circumstances. Let me just say this. Because the church is a place of healing and refuge, many times discontented people show up. And just because they show up doesn't mean that they're not discontented. Sometimes there are people who show up and they feel like their spiritual gift is to complain about things. But these are the men that God entrusted to David. And the reason I'm saying you and I may be able to relate to this better than you think. Every one of us have had dreams for our lives, and this was the way it was going to be, and promises and all that. And it may even be something in ministry where you feel like God has called you to, and there's all these dreams and visions, and stuff starts happening. It may not be exactly like David's, but somehow what happened to David didn't seem to line up with the plans of him being the next king of Israel. I mean, in a cave, 400 discontented, distressed, and people in debt. And I think sometimes when God speaks into our lives about plans, we should be excited. We should be people of faith. But then some hardships come along. And maybe we think God has removed his hand from us and removed his call from us. But you know what? We know the story doesn't stop there. David went on to become such a king of Israel that even to this day, he is called the king in Israel. That's what they're looking for. More promises were fulfilled than David could have ever imagined. Hey, you and I never know the doors that God may open up for us. Now, I can't prove this from Scripture either, but there are a lot of Bible scholars who believe that among these 400 discontented people, out of these came David's mighty warriors, who we see in 2 Samuel, who are there protecting David and who fight mighty battles. So I just want to say to you today, if you're feeling like that, man, life just isn't where I felt like God was, where God had promised me, don't give up. Continue to look to the Lord. And hey, who knows? Those who are in distress, in debt, and discontented could be the very people that God is sending to help deliver you. God bless you.